During the early medieval period, it was common practice for major cities to build high stone walls around themselves in an attempt to keep invaders out. Luckily, many of these walled cities have been preserved today, allowing us a tantalizing glimpse into what life must have been like all those centuries ago. Visitors to Vannes marvel at its winding streets, which seem to have no pattern, and the timber-framed houses that line the city square, both of which are typical of a medieval town. But it is Vannes' immense stone walls that truly leave visitors in awe. Welcome to Intrigued Mind, where today we travel to the walled city of Vannes, one of France's most beautifully preserved fortified towns, whose origins lay in the distant past. Situated on Brittany's Gulf of Morbihan on France's west coast, the walled city of Vannes was first settled by seafaring Celts in pre-Roman times. These were the Veneti people, and they engaged in cross-channel trade, dealing with such diverse products as wheat from the Middle East and tin from Britain. The Veneti were defeated by the Romans in 56 BCE, and the area was renamed Darioritum. Most of the Celts were sold into slavery or killed. Those who remained were the ancestors of Christians who established Vannes as a diocese in the 5th century. Some of Vannes' oldest fortifications are the ramparts de Vannes. The first enclosure was built at the end of the 3rd century, when the Roman Emperor Probus ordered that all of the cities on both sides of the English Channel be fortified. The fortifications would be in some state of construction for the next 14 centuries. Not much is known about the construction of the fortification of Vannes after the Roman period, until the 10th century, when a fortress had already been constructed on the north wall. Most historians believe that this fortress was built in the 5th or 6th centuries. In the 8th century, Vannes became the birthplace of Saint Emilion, a monk who completed administrative tasks for the Count of Vannes at the time. Saint Emilion, whose feast day is celebrated on the 16th of November, is the patron saint of wine and winemakers. He is remembered for stealing bread from the Count to give to the poor, yet miraculously turning this bread into wood when questioned by the Count about what he hid beneath his robes. The castle of Motte, which exists today as a monument and tourist attraction only, was the family seat of the Counts of Vannes. It was the home of even more illustrious nobility after that. Dukes and kings of Brittany lived there. One notable occupant was Jean I, Duke of Brittany, who went on crusade in 1270 with the French king and survived the plague that took the monarch's life. Duke Jean I was so fractious that his continual warring with his neighbors resulted in substantial damage to the ramparts. This made Vannes vulnerable to attack. Indeed, the English king, Henry II, besieged the city twice. This led the Duke to the decision that the ramparts needed repair and expansion, with the work commencing in 1237. 50 years later, an earthquake did further damage to the ramparts of Vannes, giving Duke Jean II cause to continue these repairs. The castle of Motte had also been seriously damaged by this earthquake, so the Duke gave the structure to the Bishop Henry Tor. It became an episcopal seat thereafter. In the following century, during the 100 Years' War, Vannes was a city caught between Charles of Blois and Jean de Montfort. It also briefly fell into the hands of the English, but French control was reasserted in the latter months of 1342. A new castle was built in Vannes under Jean IV. Emilion Castle was completed in 1385. Its position as a place of political importance was consolidated when Joan of Navarre was married to Henry IV of England by proxy there in the year 1402. Emilion Castle would become a place of either refuge or imprisonment, depending on who the individual was and their relationship to the Duke. One notable guest at Emilion Castle was a young Welshman named Henry Tudor, who resided there with 400 of his followers in 1483, just prior to his ascension to the English throne. The second enclosure's construction commenced in the 15th century. Jean IV had the ramparts repaired and then enlarged towards the south, encapsulating the city's suburbs and thus enlarging the walled section of Vannes from 5 to 13 hectares. 2 gates and their barbicans were added in this century. Work on 3 of the city's towers, Tour de Bourreau, the Tour Poudrière, and the Tour Juliette, commenced at this time too. It was also in this and the previous century that the distinctive framed timber houses that stand in the Place de Lys square were built, which still charm visitors to Vannes today. The walled city of Vannes was besieged yet again in 1487 and would be under attack 5 times over the course of the next 5 years. The Bretons were defeated, and this defeat was the herald of what was to come 40 years later, the 1532 proclamation of a union between Brittany and France. This proclamation marked a turning point in the history of Vannes as a fortified city. The union between Brittany and France ushered in a time of peace, thus reducing the need to build fortifications. This peace did not last long, however. The French Wars of Religion, which raged from 1562 to 1598, saw the Duke of MERCOEUR, governor of Brittany, have his engineers improve Vannes fortifications again in 1592. The city's ramparts were further strengthened via the addition of 3 bastions to the south. The Duke of MERCOEUR and the governor of Vannes, René de Arradon, stationed Spanish troops at Vannes from 1594 to 1598. These religious wars had emptied Vannes' coffers, which meant that there was no more money to complete the work that had been commenced to create a port in the south for communications. Between 1611 and 1619, the bastions that had been built in the previous century were improved, one of these being rebuilt in stone. Then, in 1622, a bridge was constructed, as was another gate. This gate was named Port Saint-Vincent, in honor of a preacher who died in Vannes in 1419, Saint Vincent Ferrier. He was buried in one of the chapels of Cathedral Saint-Pierre, a Gothic-style cathedral that greets visitors today with a medieval stone frieze carved near the doorway. The Parliament of Brittany was installed in Vannes from 1675 to 1689. This meant that there was an increase in economic and population growth. Ermine Castle was demolished at the end of the 17th century, with its materials being donated to King Louis XIV, ostensibly for him to use in the construction of Versailles. Today, visitors can still attend the site where this structure once stood and view the neoclassical palace that was built in its place. The ramparts of Vannes were at the very least maintained until the 17th century, but sadly, the 18th century saw a marked decline in Vannes fortifications. Some of the city's castles, gates, and bastions were dismantled so that the stone could be used for other infrastructure projects in the city. The ramparts themselves fell into a state of disrepair, which was exacerbated by the coming of the French Revolution late in the century. Demolition of the fortifications built in medieval times continued into the 19th century. Thankfully, in 1911, the residents of Vannes realized what a national treasure they had right in front of their eyes, and to that end, a committee was established to protect the walled city of Vannes as a heritage site. Today, Vannes' urban walls are one of the best preserved in Brittany, with 3/4 of these walls still intact. This is thanks in no small part to a community group, Friends of Vannes, who raised 5,000 gold francs for the conservation effort after it was announced that the prison gate was to be demolished. As the name suggests, this gate, situated on the northern side of the wall, was used to imprison criminals from the 13th to the 15th century, making it a valuable historical site. In 1950, the mayor of Vannes, Francis Decker, conceived an idea to create a French-style garden to highlight the eastern section of the wall. Today, these beautifully ornate gardens are one of the city's major attractions for tourists, who are enchanted by the topiary trees, manicured lawns, and colorful displays of flowers. In 1982, the ongoing protection of the walled city of Vannes was assured when a plan was put in place by the municipality to safeguard and enhance this national treasure of France. If you ever happen to find yourself in the west of France, a visit to the walled city of Vannes is a must. There, you can catch a glimpse of what life in a fortified medieval town would have looked like, from its meandering cobblestone paths to its timber-framed houses, its many arched gates to its Gothic-style cathedral. This treasure truly is a medieval marvel, preserved in time by the men and women of Vannes, who were wise enough to see the true historical value of this beautiful Breton city. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel. Like the video, and leave your suggestions in the comments below.